Good morning, buenos dias, mi gente. How is everyone doing this morning? My name is Emmanuel Lopez, and I have the pleasure of serving as HACE's Director of Strategic Initiatives and Partnerships. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. So that being said, before we get started, I want to make just a few announcements. Just so keeping in mind that tomorrow is our career fair for early employees, college, recent grads. So be sure to go on our events page and register for that event. As well as we have our Latina Equal Pay Day recruitment series coming up. So be sure to also go online and be able to go to the events page and register for that event. But most importantly, to all our partners that are out there, keep in mind on October 6th, we will be hosting our partnership town hall review. You should have gotten an invite. If not, you will be getting one soon, and feel free to reach out to me. But now on to the star of the show today, this Cafecito morning. I have the pleasure of having Kristin Coleman with us. Kristin Coleman, she serves as the Executive Director, Head of Employee Engagement for JP Morgan Chase, Advancing Hispanic and Latinos. Kristin, welcome to Cafecito.
Buenos dias. Great to see everybody.
All right. So, Kristin, first off, how do you like your cafecito in the morning? How do you prepare it? What is your beverage of choice? Everybody's wondering. That's always the talk of the town here at Cafecito. So, Kristin, let us know what your drinking choices in the morning.
Tea pleasure. I know everybody loves their espresso bucks. I had my cafecito cup, by the way, but I love a caramel latte. As many shots as you schedule, I need all of that. So need a lot of those shots, and I like it to feel like a treat.
I'm a big. Sometimes I do have a big sweet tooth, but I usually stick with a nice 32-ounce black coffee, 2 pumps of sugar-free vanilla, and that's my go-to in the morning. The team thinks that's a little bit too much coffee, but I don't say that. I don't say that as much. So again, Kristin, thank you so much for joining us. I see Rafa JPMC is in the house. They always do a great representation to support their teams. Now let's get started. Kristin, can you tell me a little bit about your cultural and professional background, your ethnicity, heritage, race, and how you got to your career?
Claro. Well, Kristin Coleman, I like to demystify the fact. I am a proud Latina. I am third generation Mexicana. So near and dear to me, northern Mexico, Tamaulipas. I'm here in Arizona. I think that for a lot of sometimes those generations bleed through and through. And that you have to appreciate the fact that Anna that fell in love with the gringos, so I non-Latino name to another, but I am proud a single mom household and part of my culture that I grew up with. So as way that I grew at, a lot of us have very unique experience and a Chicana on the team, but I'm always representing her.
That's great. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us. Tamaulipas. I've never been there, so that's on the calendar. We had all states in my book. Now, I really want to take a deeper dive more about JPMC. I know we talked a little bit earlier, and and you did share a lot of the great insights and the things that JPMC has been doing and is doing right now. But that being said, what programs and approach is JPMC taking when focusing on DE&I, and how does it set itself apart from other firms?
Morgan Chase says that we run DEI as a business. That, as much as I love partnering with, we were actually created in our 7 global DEI businesses. It means that we are driving the DEI strategy for our over 300,000 employees. Differentiator, it's that we are making sure that we are set up to that we want to in regard to our employee population, improving the outcomes, communities, nonprofit partners, thinking about financial health components for all. When I think about all of the way that we are touching allies 24/7, for me, it's not, what many other activities on the side. They get to support positive outcomes
Hey,
all
Kristin,
the time. So,
try to disconnect your
yeah.
headphones. Audio is kind of going in and out. If you were just to go in regular mode, if you go that way, having a little issues with the audio. And unmute yourself.
Okay, back
There
on.
we go. All right, so let's go. Let's bring it back a little bit as far as picking up where you left off, talking about how JPMC and the DE&I and how it differences and how their programs are different from other firms.
Yeah. So, in regard to driving DEI as a business, again, we are making sure that all of our communities are impacted in a meaningful way. We're supporting the outcomes for employees, students, businesses, nonprofit partners, communities, and really thinking about that at global scale. So, I think that we have a responsibility in corporate America that we have a lot of influence. We have a lot of stakeholders. We have an opportunity to shape those outcomes and really think about systemic change in regard to all of those communities. So again, we're not an organization that is doing this on the side or that are volunteering. It is what we do 24/7. And so when we think about that, it is a differentiator, right? To make sure that we have an always on DEI strategy and that we work across all of our other diverse segments to make sure that they're doing the same. We are aligned in our mission to make sure that we're driving DEI in partnership with those allies and that we're thinking about how we support it through a Latino lens. So super important that that's the piece that I get to do every day. And it's an honor and a privilege because, again, I think that going back to me starting as a college sophomore and a first-gen student myself, I never would have thought that 2 decades later, the work that I got to do would bleed into a professional background, a human resources background, and blend it with my heritage. So it's an honor to get to do this work. And again, when we think about being the voice for Hispanics and Latinos, it's a big job, it's a big responsibility, but we have a wonderful organization and a wonderful franchise that's allowing us to do this work in meaningful ways, which I'm super proud of. I think that there are very few organizations that say that they have a $30 billion racial equity commitment for Hispanics and Latinos, as well as our Black community. So when I think about us changing the way that we do business, changing the way that we show up, changing the way that we operate, those are game changers, to be frank. So I think that those are the things to me that I'm super proud of because we're walking the talk of DEI, right? So those are the things that make me super proud of the work that we do.
Wow, I had no idea that much backing JPMC was doing for it. That's amazing. That is so wonderful to hear that. Walking the walk and talking the talk. I love to hear that. Now, Kristin, you've been at JPMC for 20 years. Can you tell me more about your career journey and how your identity as a Latina and a Chicana has impacted how you show up at work.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that being born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona, and being part of a global corporation like JP Morgan Chase, I did not have a trajectory where I thought that I would be in corporate America. Very humble beginnings. Like I'd mentioned, my mom was a farm worker from the age of 9 years old. So when I think about her story as a teen mom and the things that she went through, it was always around education. So for me, I had an opportunity as a first-gen college student because of what I call my Latina privilege, right? The fact that there were a number of organizations that poured into me and allowed me to have an opportunity to go to college, to be surrounded by, professional Latinas through a Greek network that I could aspire to be like and be with, and to push me through that process. So when I think about the fact that it was a little bit of a happy accident that, the social chair of a Latina sorority is the person that became a recruiter at JP Morgan Chase and really only started my career here to pay for housing. I did not have the means to get my housing covered. So I had to work part-time as I went to school. So my first job in the bank was as a part-time teller. And I know that a lot of people have that story where they started in a very humble role, part-time or hourly position. And I had the good fortune to stumble into recruitment, to stumble into human resources. And so throughout my career, it was always thinking about how can I not be the only. I didn't see a whole lot of representation early on in my career. And so when I think about being the person that is now looking for talent, it was always with this eye around how can I be more inclusive? How can I look and search and find people to bring to the organization? And it was really only through taking that to the next level of, I would call it my Latina grit, to just work hard, learn, be a sponge, that I was able to move into leadership as, one of the few Latina executives as I grew my career. I was always championing DEI. I was always championing organizations like our BRG networks and Adelante, that's ours here for JP Morgan Chase. So it was almost that side hustle became my full-time job. And I think that that's the beauty of this organization, that we are big enough to grow your career in places that you never thought possible. So when I think about that journey, it's certainly one that I hear from a lot of employees is similar in that, wasn't expecting to come to corporate America, was the first in my family. But there's a space here for us. And I'm really excited because I see more and more organizations that are being thoughtful to think about what is your story? How can you tell it in a way that it can be a place where others can see themselves? So when I think about how that shaped me at work, it's my story personally and professionally is essentially the job that I do today. So it's a true honor. And so I want to make sure that I'm always showing up. I might be a Chicana, but I always have to think about it from a lens of how do I represent other communities? How do I represent individuals that don't have the privilege that I had for some parts of my career? So I think that my journey is a unique one, but I hope it's one that people can look at and say, that's unexpected. I didn't necessarily go to school for human resources or DEI, but it just so happens that I work at an organization that is committed to DEI and is committed to these things where I was able to flourish and grow in a little bit of a unique trajectory to get here. And now, my sisters and my siblings and my mom, of course, tell me how that's shocking to them to think that that's what I get to do, is really support the Latino community every single day of my work. And I think it's pretty special. I love it.
I love how you said your Latina grit, right? That grit is something that I feel that is really bestowed upon a lot of people in the Latino community when it comes to that. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. I know that we have some activity in the chat. So if you have any questions for Kristin, let's see here. This is from Naomi. How do you lead or create understanding with executive leaders in a corporation like JPMC?
So I think that for me, it was really around, stretching my network and understanding that I needed to understand other people's kind of value system and what mattered in business and in different places. So, when I think about the way that I was able to navigate corporate America, or how I think about individuals that are able to do that well, it's that you always think about strategic networking and who can know your value. People say, it's not who you know, but who knows you. And so I think that part of my intentionality was always thinking about who or what, department systems do I need to know about to make sure that I'm offering value every time I have an introduction. And so I think that as I grew in my career and understanding executives, at the end of the day, we're just humans, we're just people. And so building that rapport, getting to know people, being curious, allowed me to be in a space with a lot of executives that I was able to kind of learn with them, grow, and just make sure that it was always reciprocal in terms of, my perspective, or a way that I can offer them value in parts of their business or part of their career, so that it was always something that it was never a challenge to get buy-in, because of the fact that there was a level of, kind of rapport that was built, so that we can, think about that. So I think even going forward into leading DEI as a business, it is the business imperative of understanding, like, you need to know your stats, your figures, the things that are valuable to whomever you're talking to make sure that, again, you're working with both your heart and your mind in terms of these topics around DEI, or even the mission of advancing Hispanics and Latinos. So I think that in any space, it's just building that, that connectivity and having those well-rounded conversations.
Yes, the conversations are always to be made. It's a great question. I know you've been really busy and you've been on the road a lot, especially with Hispanic Heritage Month coming up. But Alina asks, how do you take care of yourself while being the face and voice of your people?
Ooh, I think it's, I always say that, work-life balance is a little bit of a myth. I think that you have to have a support system. I think in the Latino community, especially, it takes a village, right? So I'm fortunate that I have a big family that supports me. And so when I think about taking care of myself, it's that balance of, how do I squeeze in a concert with my teenager, or how do I think about, just making sure that when I'm home or when I'm not traveling, we have that special time together. The other funny thing is that, when I think about different things that I've incorporated into my I guess my schedule, I felt like I needed a little bit of a release. So for me, that was actually powerlifting at one point in my career. So actually, while I was here at Chase, I enjoyed lifting weights. And so when I think about, what are the things that can be a de-stressor, it was, lifting a barbell. So I like to tell people that I pride myself on being like a literal strong Chicana. So I think those are the things you have to think about. Like, what are those happy spaces, whether it's your cafecito, whether it's, some hobby or interest. It's really just making sure that you are a little bit, you are a little bit selfish in the way that you give yourself those indulgences of things that are going to just really round you out, because you can't be good at everything, and you have to make sure that you are investing in your portfolio of investment in yourself is really well rounded, in your family and your friends and your free time. So I think it's just being cognizant. There's going to be times where it's crazy and you can't get those things in, but you have to make time, and you have to be intentional about where you where you spend it, because you won't get that time back. So I think as a mama 3, that's always something that I'm thinking about, is making sure, how do I show up for my kids in a way that I'm making them proud, and we have those memorable moments for sure.
That's beautiful. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. And I hope everyone got some insight on that. I know I did. So pretty much Kristin saying I can have that extra piece of cake to be able to be able to help myself be in a happy place. Now, before we go, Kristin, what are you hopeful for, or what's a positive story that gives you hope for this year?
So, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that it's Hispanic Heritage Month, right? So as I think about my hope for the future, it's that, for one, Latinos feel empowered, that you're thinking about that as your superpower, that you are giving voice to the community and the diversity and the different lenses that you have. And that you're really amplifying that in your organization. So, during Hispanic Heritage, for me, it's a reflection, it's a look back and an appreciation and gratitude for the generations that came before me that had very different circumstances than myself, and really making sure that I'm honoring them through the work that I do, that I'm being bold, that I'm using, I'm going to habla loud, right, in this space where I have an opportunity to do this work in a meaningful way. And I like to tell people that, I can't necessarily, represent or understand every single part of the Hispanic and Latino experience, but I do have a responsibility to make sure that their voice isn't lost in any conversation that I do in work, in my personal life. So I feel really encouraged that we are at our place where cultural moments and the diversity of your experience is honored and celebrated. So I think especially at this time, this is our time to shine. This is our time to kind of take charge of, not concealing yourself, not holding back, and really making sure that you are asserting yourself in a way that is going to position you for success. Because I think for too many times in my history coming up, it's been that I was so grateful, right? Everyone's so grateful. We're happy Latinos. Everything's great. It was better than my mom's situation or my abuelita's situation. But it really is saying, no, I'm enough. I know my value and I can do more and I can make bigger impacts. So I think for me, it's just really inspiration for all the stories that I see, the stories being told, the imperative, the power, all of the things that we should all be really proud of and that we should champion for one another, right? So I think in terms of looking to the future is just really making sure that everyone has that same lens, right? Like own it, rock it, whatever perspective you have in the way that you show up, like don't be afraid to show that part of yourself, because it is absolutely something that I've seen is my superpower, right? Like, again, even whether I thought that I earned it or not, or whether I thought that I was Latina enough to lead a strategy, it's that, I can't help that I was born here in the US, or I can't help that there were different things that were going on, but I can honor my culture. I can honor my family. I can honor the voices that are unspoken for, that need to have that representation. So that's what I'm hopeful for.
Awesome, Kristin. Thank you so much. Thank you, JPMC, for being a great member. Thank you, Kristin Coleman, for joining us today. Hasta la próxima, everyone. Adios.
Gracias. Bye, everyone.